Hello and welcome to the vlog. It's a little bit of a different vlog today. I've had many questions from people asking me about buying a boat, so I thought it might be interesting to come along to a boat broker and just have a sit down chat with them about the process of buying a boat, the pitfalls, the pros and cons and all that. So I'm here at Rugby Boats at Stowe Hill Wharf and we'll have a sit down chat with James in just a second. Before we do that, I should point out that Rugby Boats didn't ask me to do this. It's not a paid advertisement for them. I just had to pick a broker and they're quite conveniently close to me. They are pretty well regarded as far as I know. Certainly when I was looking to buy a boat, there were a few names that kept coming up as brokers you should go and see, and Rugby Boats was one of those. And thirdly, Rugby Boats have their own YouTube channel, so I knew that if I approached them and said, look, let's do something for YouTube, they'd be conversant with that and au fait. And by the way, if you're not already subscribed to their channel, seriously worth doing. I'll leave a link to it in the video description below because they do video tours of every boat they're selling, and there's nothing quite as lovely as having a good old nose round someone else's boat. Right, it's blowing a gale and freezing. Let's get in and have that chat. The first question would simply be, it may sound obvious, but what does a broker do, both in terms of for the buyer and indeed for the seller?
The broker offers a platform, first and foremost. I think this day and age, the internet is what people generally resort to when they're looking for narrowboats or whether they're looking for teaspoons. You could spend an age looking at privately sold boats. There's no real reason why you shouldn't go down that route, but a broker offers you numbers. Around here, for example, there are 4 or 5 decent brokers all in the same area, so people come down from Cheshire, up from Cornwall, Devon, and they can do a huge amount of boats in one weekend. It offers you security at different levels of process, of legality. It gives you security of money. We have client accounts, as I'm sure they all do. So if I got run over by a chicken tomorrow and there was £100,000 of somebody else's money in our accounts, that is safe. And it offers a service. We protect sellers, for example, from an awful lot of hassle, rubbish. People call them fender kickers.
Let me just pick you up on something you said there, which was talking about the admin and the formalities of it, because that surprises a lot of people, me included when I was buying mine, in that there is no central register of ownership of who owns a boat. Obviously there's a boat licence, and people have said to me, well, surely that counts, but it doesn't, does it?
No, correct. When I bought my boat, I had a scrap of paper that said I've bought the Radish for X amount of money, and that was the only bit of paper I had suggesting that I owned that boat. You have a bill of sale. For a boat to be sold properly, you have a bill of sale which is as close as you get to a legal document of ownership. It's signed by the seller in favour of the buyer, and that is the piece of paper, for example, if a finance company is lending you money for the boat, they will need that and the original bill of sale from the seller to prove that he owns the boat he's selling.
If the person you're buying it from bought it on finance, and strictly speaking the finance company owns the boat, is anything going to protect the new buyer from the previous finance company taking claim if there's a default?
The bill of sale declares that the vessel is free from any form of debt. So that is a legally binding document to say the boat I'm selling has no weight around its neck. Secondly, we would not transfer a boat until proof of debt clearance has been provided. So we would get a letter from the previous mortgage company saying we no longer have an interest in this boat.
Is that one of the aspects of brokerage that gives buyers more security than if they were buying privately?
For sure. I think if you're buying privately, you can ask for the relevant documentation. You might not get it.
There are lots of brokers around with varying reputations, and obviously I'm not going to name names, but anyone can do a scan of the forums, and some names come up as good and some names come up as bad. How can a buyer or a seller have any idea about whether a broker really is good or bad? What should they look for at a broker to be reassured that this is someone they want to do business with?
There are lots of brokers. Whether or not you could term some as bad, I would potentially question, because if they were that bad, they wouldn't have a business. I think there's a difference in strategy with some. There's a level of honesty and integrity that is underlying through all of them. The focus on those may vary. I think, as you say, internet forums will give you some feedback about how people operate. I think it's different strategies rather than good and bad. Some brokers are known for selling good boats that are ready to go and fit for purpose. And I think within the wider boating world, those are pretty well known. Some brokers sell boats that might not be fit for purpose and are not ready to go. That is fine. That ticks some people's boxes. They only want to spend,
boats.
yeah, they only want to spend £5,000-10,000 on a boat. Contracts can be slightly different. If we, for example, take a deposit on a boat, that is technically non-refundable, subject to various terms in the contracts post-survey. The reason for that...
Surely that is the point of a deposit, is that you can get it back if something goes wrong.
The contracts say if the surveyor picks up 10% worth or more of the boat's value, you can walk away and get your money back. The point of a deposit here is that it's a commitment to buy. The moment you put down a deposit on a boat, we close the doors. We turn away viewers. So it is, you can't change your mind, it's commitment to buy. We had one
Unless,
boat,
as you say, the survey suddenly says, actually, this boat is a
yes.
disaster.
And actually sub the 10% level, because 10% on a £50,000 boat is quite a lot of wrong with the boat, actually. Possibly just by virtue of the type of boat we try to sell. We rarely have any serious values of rectifications that are required.
Is that common, that deposit? Is that peculiar to you?
There are some brokers who do let you change your mind. Whether or not they continue to allow viewings post-deposit, I couldn't tell you because I don't know. We had one boat earlier this year in April or May. It went on the website Wednesday lunchtime. A chap from Devon rang up and said, can you hold it till Saturday for me? It's just what I'm looking for. And we said, no, we work for the buyers, for the sellers rather. You need to either get up here sooner than Saturday or run the risk it'll sell. He put a deposit down over the phone without having seen the boat, which never makes me particularly comfortable, to be honest. That same day, we had 4 further calls saying, we've just seen the boat, can we come and see it? And we said no. He jiggled things around, and the next day he came to view the boat, and he left here after 2 or 3 hours like a dog with 2 tails. He loved it. And an hour later, he was down the motorway, he'd stopped, and he phoned me up, bawling his eyes out, and he said, I've got to pull out. The point of that story is that we turned away 4 people. That is why you can't change your mind.
And did he lose his deposit?
He lost his deposit, yeah.
Wow.
And we're always very, very clear when we take a deposit that that is the deal and it's contractually written and this, that and the other.
Well, now, forgive me saying this then, but on that basis, watching this and hearing what you're saying, I might think as a buyer, I don't know if I want to go with a broker. This all sounds a bit...
As I say, some do let you change your mind. I don't know how they manage the viewings, as I've already said. But would you put down a deposit of £3,000, £4,000, £5,000 unless you're pretty sure you want that boat?
So the note here really for buyers is treat the deposit pretty seriously, not just flying around and trying to bookmark boats you like the look of.
Exactly. And that's the reason the boat comes off the market.
Right.
We've only had 2 examples in the last year where that's happened. If we have taken a deposit and something happens in that person's life that means he cannot proceed through unfortunate, tragic circumstances that are genuinely unavoidable, we do give the deposit back. We're grown-ups and we're humans. It's not as black and white as that.
Do you make buyers have a survey, or do you simply strongly recommend it? Or
it's their choice. We recommend it. Whether it's a 2-year-old boat or a 20-year-old boat, we recommend it, but it is the buyer's choice.
You see a lot of boats for sale that say, survey from a year ago, 2 years ago, is available. Is that worth anything?
It's not worth anything. If you bought that boat today and it had a survey a month ago, full survey, it's not worth anything from an insurance point of view were that boat to sink, because that survey is in the name of the previous owners. From a comfort point of view, it can be worth a lot, yes.
Because you see a lot of people saying, oh, don't trust a previous survey, get your own done.
Yeah, it's not worth anything to you legally. It's comfort. We will always declare any problems on a boat if we know about them.
Whereas a private buyer might not.
A private buyer can cover up lots. Brokers can cover up lots. I'm sure they don't, but they could. But most of them, if not all of them, will be helping you through the process and saying that doesn't work, that'll need fixing. And of course, if you have a survey, then it should pick it up anyway. A broker will help you through the survey process. Everything can be done here, and I know at other brokers, everything can be done there. Boat out, boat in, repairs that are necessary, blackings, anodes, that can all be done.
Now, I realise you're probably inherently going to be optimistic about this, but how is the market for boats at the moment? Are we seeing lots and lots of people buy them? I don't just literally mean this month, but generally, is boating still very popular? Is there lots of demand?
There's huge demand. It's very buoyant. Boats are selling so quickly if they're priced right and they're decent boats. It's been going on for some time, a few years. I think housing prices, for sure, is driving up. We're seeing people in their mid-30s buying boats. They've never been on a boat before, but they walk on a narrowboat and think this cost me 1,500 quid a month in London. So that is fueling probably the lower end of the price bracket. They changed the pension laws a few years ago, so at 55 now you can have a lump of cash. That seems to be fueling the sort of more expensive end of the market. Brexit, holidays aboard now 20% more expensive. The television programmes with Timothy West and the various other canal programmes. We're getting emails and calls from America, Australia saying, I've seen a narrowboat, how do I get one of those? We've sold 3 boats this year to people one from Spain, one from Australia and one from America. And it's just fueling a frenzy, I think, is probably the word. Yeah.
Is there a typical buyer, or are they very varied?
Very varied. Very varied. Divorcees, happily married couples in their mid-50s who can realise a dream now. Young couples, young singles looking for a cheaper way and a more peaceful way to live.
Have you had any, this is a bit of an unfair question, any disasters happen with selling a boat? Someone's bought it, it's all fine, they drove off and gently went sink, 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 or something, you know. Has there ever been any?
We've had 2 boats in the last year that needed overplating. That all worked because the buyers were happy to wait for the work to be done. The sellers did the work without any question. But because we try and focus on reasonable boats, having a surveyor say it needs an overplate is always a bit of a shock to me. But we've had no disasters. We have had boats break down within 5 hours of leaving here, but we've seen to them and helped them out. But no, touch wood, no disasters.
Is there any final advice or key tips you would give to someone looking to buy a boat, whether it's from a broker or privately? What are your key things to do?
I think whether you're spending £5,000 or £100,000, it's a lot of money and a big decision. I think it's important to look at as many boats as you can physically. We try and do videos and photography and this, that and the other. You've got to touch a boat, smell a boat, feel a boat. You think you know what you want. Somebody came in last July looking for a 50-foot semi-trad, and that's all he was ever going to consider, and he ended up buying a tugboat. So what you think you want, your views may change. I think also you need to be prepared for compromise and be aware that anything in a boat is changeable. So if you only want to pump out loo and a particular boat ticks 95% of your boxes, you can change it. You can take out pump outs and put in cassettes. You can move anything around in a boat. It obviously comes at cost, but in the current market, for sure, when boats aren't hanging around, if it ticks 95% of your boxes, don't hang around. Do not panic buy, but don't think you can wait for another month or two while you pop up off to Cheshire and look at some more.
Is there any one, possibly two, crucial things that above all else a buyer needs to look for in a boat?
It depends what you want from a boat. I don't think there's a straight answer to that. If you're spending £5,000 on a project versus £100,000 on a boat that you just want to sail off and be happy on for the next 10 years, it just depends on what you're looking for. But it needs to float.
Thank you very much.